Yeah, are you in the copy room or something, the mail room?
No, I'm actually at Spring Hill Suites.
Mm.
And we're here at a GA Cup right now in Dallas.
Oh, very nice. And you're with the Youth Academy right now, correct?
Yes. So I'm not working with the Youth Academy. Because we hired new people, but they just wanted, because they're new and we're going. GA Cup's a 10-day road trip. So imagine being thrown into two brand new youth teams and go on a 10-day road trip and know nothing about the teams. So they just wanted me to come in the beginning to make sure everything's settled, make sure it's like everything's going according to plan, and then I'm going to fly out today.
Okay. Listen, first off, congratulations on your promotion, man. I think that's awesome. I'm fully ecstatic on where you're going with your career. We need really good athletic trainers, and you think outside of the box in the general scope of things. But yeah, we need more. We need better.
Appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's athletic training. You have so many different styles on how you do things, whether it's rehab or your evals and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think the idea is to get more people off the tables and from doing like leg extensions and just very basic movements to doing more functional movements on the floor and just incorporating full body rather than just, again, isolating one muscle and sitting on the table. That's what I call it, but looking at everything globally and just being much more like sports specific and, again, functional with the body and the athlete, make it relate to what they do.
How are you taking someone that's injured? Because this is one of the things that not that I battle with, but I'll just say I've done it myself, where if I have an injury, like the bicep was a thing, right, where I tore my bicep moving a trash can, I wasn't deadlifting, and it just went at the most unexpected time. And the rehab process for myself, I was frustrated with, because it was at a time where I just came out of surgery and then a day later got COVID, which really I was fatigued and slept. They pushed therapy back, I think 10 days, 14 days. And then, so now I'm like 3 weeks in. He can't get me until week number 4. So I started the process already at home, just gripping and just moving fingers and trying to get some of those intrinsic muscles in my forearm and then in my shoulder to go along through. So by the time I went to my first round of physical therapy, the doctor was like, "What have you been doing? Because you're ahead of the game at this point." And my question to him was, the whole "don't move a cup of coffee" rule was still in place. And I'm like, if I can load 5 pounds, is that possible? Can I load? And he's, no, I'd stick with the 5 pounds. Why do you think that is? Because I felt like if I could load comfortably and I could load, in my understanding of proliferation would be like, if I can get this tissue to adhere, my body's naturally going to heal faster.
Sure.
Am I wrong in that aspect, or at least am I off?
No, not necessarily. That's like the science behind it, right? So obviously that makes sense. You want to load up the tissue in the body in order to make it more resilient. And I do know, though, specifically with specific surgeries, right? Like when you rupture a bicep or something, they got to anchor it back down. They got to pin it back down.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
One thing they get scared of, right, is like that fresh anchor, whatever it is, load it up too quickly, too soon, at the wrong time, at the wrong angle, whatever it may be, boom, it pops again. And then you're back to square one.
Correct.
Now, in my mind, like if they did a good enough job, it's not going to do that. But no, but that is the theory behind things. And I know initially off the bat, you do want to be mindful of those things, but you're right in terms of wanting to load it up. Now, I know, like, for instance, like with an ACL, it's very interesting, especially with a certain type of graft, but like sometimes right after surgery is when that tendon is the strongest it's going to be.
I've heard that.
Yeah, 8 to 12 months, right? Like right after surgery, it's going to be stronger than anything else. So not that you could, but you're probably in a lot of pain and don't want to load it up. But if you did, like, it's probably going to be strong and you're going to be okay. Well, just going back again, like initially after surgery, yeah, you have to be mindful and you should follow protocols, but all like the little things that you can start doing off the bat, like,
right,
it's going to help in the longevity of the whole process. And if we can get somebody full range of motion or just muscle contractions, whatever it is, just like getting that initial phase of the rehab process going, even if you're not doing much, but just, again, something is happening there at the muscle, whatever it is.
Yeah.
you're starting the process. You start putting the healing process, and it may not sound significant. You may not feel like you're doing anything, but it pays dividends in the grand scheme of those long-term rehabs.
That's interesting, man, because we have such a huge argument on ACLs and what is the best protocol. I think the first thing, it starts with proper training, right? Let's try to reduce the risk of ACL injuries to begin with. I don't think that there's enough emphasis on the groin as much there is now the hamstring. I know I touch a lot. Like I call it, I don't know am I on the right track, but I call it the fourth hamstring. And I don't know if I've read that somewhere. I don't know if I just recall it saying in my mind, like, you know what, if this thing doesn't move, well, what's going to go? The hamstring is going to go. So if this groin is in a position where it doesn't allow the hamstring to move and extend, then we get that stress, we get the pop, we get the ACL, we get the many other things. So in my own practice, we've been really focused on groin stabilization and groin length, getting those adductors to really lengthen out. It's hard to maneuver that thought, right? When you're like, hey, it's probably really not your hamstring. It's your groin that's really the issue, or at least part of the issue. I'm not going to blame everything on just that one facet, right? Because I love anatomy. I love how there's so many multiple stages to joints, how things move. But if I'm looking at everything just from a bird's eye view, I'm saying, let's look at pelvic position. Let's look at groin. What are your thoughts and what have you seen recently, either on the pro side or the youth side of things, where the groin is being either overlooked, undervalued, or is it probably one of the biggest issues?
Man, that is a great topic right now. And just especially with this sport, this setting, and this population, like the groin is huge. And so obviously I've worked a bunch of different sports, and like transitioning into soccer has been great because it's my jam.
Yeah.
I know it front and back. I know
that's right.
Sport. I know what it entails, all that stuff. But I will say the amount of groin injuries we have is unbelievable. And it's the thing is, it's not a pretty rehab. Like, it's not fun. It's not like exciting. Like, no. There's not many cool functional things you can do. So to me, it's one of the more boring rehabs.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't excite me, but the fact that I'm now so exposed to it makes a lot of sense, again, for the sport. So, and we see it a lot very early in, like, beginning of the season, preseason, whatever it is, right off the bat. If people haven't done enough conditioning coming into this type of load and activity,
right,
the groin's always like the first thing to go. It's the different points of your adductors, the different muscles that run along the inside of your leg. There are parts of it that help with hip flexion, hip extension. So they're just it's kind of like they're working like double time. Like, they're doing a lot of work, and especially with the dynamic movement of soccer, they're always going to be working. So we see groin injuries a lot, and I've just become so exposed to it, and it's taught me a lot in terms of like how important it is to just athletes in general, specific to soccer as well, and how much focus needs to be emphasized on that structure and that part of the body. So the nice thing is like for us, and it's a little bit of a luxury, we have different things that we can use in terms of like measurement, right? We have groin bars that we can measure if the athlete is laying on their back, if they're standing up, we can get that strength. We can look at the data, we can look at asymmetry, stuff like that, similar to what you would do with a Nord board and the hamstring.
Okay, yeah.
And I know, and so this doesn't fall under my department, but it's something we work closely with our performing staff. So at our different levels, whether it's Academy, Monarchs, or the first team, and periodically throughout the season, whether it's once a week, once every other week, we will do measurements with the athletes to track them throughout the season. Again, whether it's hamstring or adductors, and see where their fatigues at different points during the year, so we can compare to like their baseline when they first walk into there's things we do with physical, right? So we'll get their baseline groin strength, the baseline hamstring strength, and some other stuff. We'll get those baselines, and then we can track it every week. We can track it for 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and see their trends throughout the year. But you will definitely see like a significant drop in those adductors. And I think once the adductors go, that's when everything else starts to fall apart, right? Because those muscles they can't hold up as well as your quad or hamstrings. Hamstrings go as well too, right? those are just those bigger muscles that have just a little bit more depth to them than the adductors do. So you're always going to see the adductors go, especially early in preseason soccer.
Yeah, it's just an odd thing where probably 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I started to recognize that, I was on this hamstring kick with everybody else. We're like, hey, we got to do these eccentrics. We got to do the Nordics. And you absolutely must. That's not even a question. But I started to look at things into a little bit differently. And I'm in what's called like a 2-box system where, let's say for my overhead athletes, we are looking at the points of pelvis, like 2 tops of pelvis, and then 2 tops of the lower scap. Okay.
Yeah.
So we move that. And then my lowers, so soccer players, we're looking at our top of our pelvis to our knees, and we're in like these box. So I'm looking at these 4 corners and I'm saying, okay, what is the idea of to why these athletes will have more hamstring strains or more shoulder? And I keep coming back to certain parts of the body, and it was the adductors were such a large, even in rotational athletes such as baseball players, like the adductor was such a significant like role in like how they're stabilizing their pelvis. Is it pulling in one direction or the other? So for soccer players, if you just lay them on their back, I'm going to go with at least 7 out of 10. I'm going to go that high and say there's a leg length discrepancy somewhere.
Sure.
That means that we're shifting the pelvis one way, right? So that we're just going to layer these things on and say, okay, this is part of the problem. And I keep coming back to the adductor being the quote unquote 4th hamstring. And I think that if we can stabilize pelvis, we can allow hamstring to do its function. We have a 3-to-1 roughly ratio when we train hamstrings to quad. So we're going to go 3 exercises of hamstrings versus 1-to-1 on a quad exercise. And one of the biggest things that this is a huge thing right now. You have knees over toes guy who is really put the emphasis on tibia training. Yeah, but we've been like, that's one of the things that right off the bat, I think that's just part of the spiral, this line of fascia that just needs attention.
It does.
How much so since you've been at Real, how much emphasis is there in season training with weights versus off season? I guess maybe even just through the MLS.
Sure.
But the in-season strength training versus off-season strength training, I know that's not your scope, but you're going to see it often, or you're not going to see it enough just based on the injury rates. So you have a way to go back and check.
Sure. Yeah, not my department, but obviously we work very closely with our performance. And they're at every level. They're phenomenal staff we have here at Real. And everybody's just really good at programming for these kids. And again, whether it's the kids at the academy, whether it's the Monarchs or the first team, like everybody really knows their stuff. They definitely make it a point to make sure the guys are always doing something pre-season when they're away. And then when they come back, it changes a little bit. Now, granted, the things that the academy kids do will be completely different than what the first team does. Maybe out of season, like they're not going to need as much like weight room stimulation or something like that. Maybe it's just more cardio focused. Again, you also have to think about, does everybody have access to these things?
Right.
Sometimes the pros, they are able to go back to their home markets, wherever it may be, and they can get into a gym. They have private trainers, whatever it may be. Some of these kids that we have in the academy on the other end don't always have access to that. So you have to make accommodations. It's always not going to be ideal of what you wish you could do with them, but it's something. And regardless of what it is, it will change once you are in season. And they make sure they have whatever they need to do their out of season training. It's always going to be a little bit higher, right? Because you're not an in-season athlete. Your stimulation isn't going to be as high. So then once they get in season, then we really start to look at programming and planning their weight sessions also based around their practice sessions throughout the week. We have to look at things like game schedule, right? So are we playing on a Wednesday? Are we playing on a Saturday? Are we playing on a Sunday? Are we going to be gone in Dallas for 10 days? Where are we at in the season, right? So you look at all of that and you have to coordinate when we're going to do portions of our upper body, portions of the lower body, when we're peaking during the week, and then when can we start tailoring off, start giving these guys some rest before like a big match day, stuff like that. And it's funny because you think, especially even at the first team level, okay, you're a professional athlete, man, you're in the weight room all the time, you're getting your lifts in, all this stuff. It's not that, man. It's short, sweet, simple, and efficient. Like
Yes.
these guys come in, it's almost, some of these days are almost just like activation, right? Like you really don't need to tax the body in a big weight session, which I think is something like, if you're not in this population or you're not working in this type of sports, you just look at your favorite sports team and you're like, these guys are fit athletes, they're fit human beings, they are probably working out all the time. But again, then you have to come back to the science of it all. This is why you hire people to monitor loads of the athletes for the performance staff, because they know we can't just throw them on the field, have them run for 60 minutes, 90 minutes, and then tax them in the gym right after. I mean, you're going to see injury rates skyrocket, right? So like monitoring that throughout the year is so important, and what you're hitting at certain points is so important. And again, I leave it up to those guys to do it because they're good at their jobs, but I definitely appreciate when they know where the limits are, and makes my job a lot easier because I'm not seeing guys with their injury rate spiking because they're overloading their bodies, and then their bodies, their central nervous system, everything's just crashing at certain points during the year because they're overworked and they're burnt out. Their bodies are burnt out. If you peak too high in your season in terms of activity, then it's going to be a long rest of the year for you because you're not going to get days off. You're not going to get a week off to recover. It's all about finding that balance when you're in season compared to out of season.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, man, because I've taken a micro-dosing approach to strength training now. Where it's like you may only need 25 minutes in the weight room before you get to the field, or to the track, or to the football field, or right to really any sport. It's just load this first, like you're signaling your body, like this is what you're about to go do. You're about to, let's say you're a football player. You know what, let's get a few front squats in, let's get a few lunges in, let's get a few laterals in, let's get a few push-ups in, and then out you go. Very simple, right? It wasn't very complex, obviously depending on the type of where you're at in the season, but for the most part, what we run into are coaches wanting more, and they think that they actually need more. And it's a hard thing, especially at the youth level. The pro level, some of them are actually getting it, or at least the collegiate level. So we've actually brought on a few collegiate teams that were working with us over the summer, which we're excited about. And the great thing about it is those coaches having these conversations way ahead of time gives us the room to say, here are the expectations. What are the expectations on the rehab, or at least the training side of things, where those guys are, maybe they're not doing what they're supposed to do? And are you seeing the reoccurring guys over and over because they refuse to get to the weight room? Is there a correlation to guys who stay out of the weight room and to guys who go into the weight room? That's my question. And you don't have to call any names. This is not what we're here to do today, but
for sure, I definitely think there is. Like, personally, I think there is. And again, it's always going to be different at the different levels, right? And this is not even specific to soccer or Real. Like, I've seen this at all sports, right?
Yes.
So, especially when you work at a pro level with a pro sport, like, there are guys that if they come off the field with a weight room session, sometimes they're like, yeah, I'm a veteran, I've done this long enough, I don't need this, I know what my body needs. Maybe they skip the lift and they want to do something else, or they'd rather just go do their contrast bath and they feel good and they walk out the door and the day's over. And then there's guys that are in the weight room and follow it step by step, stuff like that. And again, like, this isn't specific to soccer, I've seen this at every level. But I will say guys that adhere to the plans that are given tend to have a lot more success.
Okay.
For example, when I was a graduate assistant, I was working with a tennis team, men and women's, and it was me as an athletic trainer and the same strength coach, both overseeing men and women's.
Okay.
And the strength coach and I worked very closely, and he had essentially written up the same plan for the men's team for the season and the same thing for the women's team. And one team adhered to that lifting schedule, and same thing, like, was very good at communicating, coming to me for whatever it was for treatment, stuff like that. And then the other team, whether it was the men or women's, did not adhere to that lifting schedule, whether the coach was like, no, we don't need the lift today, actually, or I'm actually going to run their lift, and I feel like they need more sprints in their session rather than whatever it is. And I will tell you, the one team that adhered to that schedule and, again, worked more closely with me had the best season in school history that year. And the other team that didn't had their worst season in school history that year.
It's such a contrast.
It's unbelievable. And so again, when fingers are pointed at the end of the season, we think you guys weren't doing enough of this or that. And we say, look, we have the same schedule for you both teams, and you chose not to do these things with your players. And this coach chose to do these things with their players. And one obviously had more success. And look, you can say that may or may not be correlated, but to me, in terms of just what you could see in terms of the physical abilities of the athletes late in their season in order to perform to get through their conferences, to me, it's pretty evident.
How hard is that conversation to have with a collegiate coach who is, no, I'm going to do it my way? And okay.
Yeah, it is tough. And I can tell you in that specific situation what happens, right? Coaches don't want blame from administration and directors, right? So they go back to everybody else and say, you weren't doing enough of this. Fingers are starting to get pointed at you because the performance of the athlete, their tennis was good, their sport was good, whatever it was, but their stamina wasn't good. They didn't look strong enough.
Sure.
Their agility across the court wasn't good. And then you have to say, whoa, come on. We're trying to work together here, but you chose to go down a different route. Now, when you start doing that,
yeah, I think
you
have to
understand.
We're easy outs. It's let's say your win-loss record is strictly adherent to how big, fast, strong your players are. And that's not the case. But that's a mindset that some coaches have, that they're going to take some of their responsibility away from, let's say, play calling or culture on their team, versus it's easier just to blame the strength coach or the athletic trainer or somebody else in that field that my guys weren't prepared. We didn't, or my girls weren't prepared, right? We just didn't do enough. In my opinion, for football, I completely understand the rigorous physical condition you must be in to play a collision sport. This is a collision sport. You're throwing humans at each other and expecting XYZ results. And for that not to happen, what are the injuries? What are the expectations on injury rates? I will say that the times that we've worked, I'll say specifically with football, concussion rates have gone down. But that's not necessarily a correlation to a strength program that it is, but I think that there was an opportunity that it provided maybe more musculature in certain areas. They were a little bit more mindful of how they were approaching. Maybe their technique was driven a little bit better. And I think that there is a correlation to how what you must be able to do in the weight room has to translate to what you do on the field.
Totally.
In your entire career, have you seen something just so either egregious, you're like, this has nothing to do with your sport, or all right, go ahead and answer that, because you're like, yeah, I got stories for days.
I mean, it's like I could pick from so many, right? And it's not a doc, right? But like, work with people that have their ways or set their ways, or maybe like things were done certain ways when they were exposed to these things. So, that really worked for me, so I'm going to carry it on to my team or whoever I'm working with.
Correct.
And whether it was them in their own experience or someone they learned from, I can't make these blanket, whether it's a program or activities for an entire team. Like, if something worked for you, that doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone else. And there has to be thought and consideration behind some of the things you're doing. And when there's not, like, it's super evident, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that one of my biggest beefs, and I'm going to probably get a lot of shit for this, is the back squat for soccer players.
Okay.
All right. I'm not saying a squat pattern is inaccurate for a soccer player. I'm just saying that I think now we have more exercises out there that can provide better performance. So, for example, instead of doing a back squat and loading a spine on a youth athlete that does not have core control yet, let's build some core control, but let's say a Bulgarian split squat or a lunge. Yeah. I think something that applies a little bit better to the sport. Now, will the back squat still work for a football player? Yeah, I think so, because they stand in bilateral. They shuffle in some bilateral. Yes, they're lateral, but it still will translate a little bit.
Yeah.
Those are just some of the things that I see. And I remember hearing this story of the Minnesota Vikings strength coach. I don't know if this is true, if I misread this, or if it even still applies today. But he removed bench pressing from the program and went to Turkish get-ups instead, because he saw a larger amount of shoulder injuries from the linemen.
Okay.
During that year, there was no to little shoulder injuries. And again, I don't want to get flagged for spreading false information, but again, I'm gonna have to see if I can find that article. And I was super intrigued to why this strength coach would say bench pressing for this, it's an old way of doing it. Let's provide better strength in these ranges. And the Turkish get up just provides every range of degree. Have you ever tried to do a Turkish get up with a 90-pound kettlebell?
No, you ain't gonna see me doing a Turkish get up with anything if I
Just a body weighted Turkish get up it becomes difficult.
Right.
So imagine a 275-pound, 315-pound lineman with a 50, 75, 90-pound kettlebell in their arms. So and the reason why I say that, because I actually found this, let me pull it up here real quick. Dude, I found this in one of my old bins. I don't know if you can see that, but that's just, what year is that? I started flipping through this thing. Here, I'll just go here. I opened it up to here. We have like this, a huge mini bang sensation thing going on now, but I don't.
Oh, dude. That's awesome.
There's nothing new about the performance stuff that we have.
No.
I'm looking, this is 1995, and I'm looking through, wow, they've got med balls in here. They've got speed timers. They've got plyo boxes. They've got so much stuff from 1995 that maybe the verbiage changed a little bit, or the understanding of how it changes a little bit. And again, I'll probably get some shit for this, but an agility ladder is not agility. God damn, we got to stop it. I'm sorry if you feel differently. I'm just speaking for myself and how I view the ladder. Now, I think the ladder does provide coordination. I think that there's opportunities for the ladder and when it can be applied, but can we change the name from agility ladder to just ladder, or the exercise? Can we change it to something different? Because I'm going on a rant, because it's just one of those things, like those coaches saying that, hey, this is what worked for me 30 years ago or 20 years ago, and I'm going to apply it to today. And the agility ladder for me is one of them. I think the agility ladder, it's not agility. If we're looking at the term of agility in itself, and it's marketed that way, it's like the ab wheel. I think the ab wheel, yeah, you are working your abdominals, but you are working your thoracic spine, your shoulders. There's so many facets to the ab wheel, and I love the ab wheel. I use it in our training all the time. But again, I think it's just the marketing purposes that dumb it down. But the agility ladder is not something that I'm going to put in someone's face and say, this is how you're going to get faster.
Correct.
How, from the rehab side of things, I see it being used more often now than before. Where do you see the agility ladder fitting in? The ladder. I'm calling it the ladder. That's it. It's over.
Right.
The ladder. Where do you see the ladder fitting in?
Sit in your warm up. That's about it.
Okay.
Obviously, you can use it for rehab too, but like if the goal is focusing on speed, agility, if you're going to use it for its name right, the ladder's not where you do it. Like you said, coordination, great. Maybe some cueing for certain things, great. But if the focus is like to legitimately increase your speed, it's not going to be every day spending 30 minutes on the agility ladder.
Yeah.
I like to use it like when I'm getting going. If I am going to do agility stuff, I use it as a warm up. I'll go through a couple movements in there just to activate everything. But am I going to base my workout around it? No. My workout's going to be based around so many other things. Because again, to me, it goes back to trying to focus on making whatever you do sport specific or movement specific to what you do. When are you ever going to be on a field or a court and there's these little squares where you have to put your feet in and out and stay confined to this one little spot?
Yeah, I saw them being used on A track once. I'm not where we're at, but I saw it at a school and they were having these kids go through these, and I asked, I was interested. So I was curious, what are you using it for? So, oh, stride length. That was the response. And some of these kids were a lot taller. And then so I don't know if that's even applicable. I don't know, man. But my point is this, again, yeah, great. You want to use it for a warm up and to get a cognitive little quick coordination thing. Cool. Yeah. Absolutely go at it. But I'm calling out speed and agility coaches where you're going to base your session around a ladder, and you're going to do karaoke's, and you're going to do 5 other exercises, and or whatever. It's not, I don't find it always feasible. Again, I think it comes along down to application.
Correct.
And who you're in front of. That's another one. Now, if you're a 8-year-old, and I think that you want to help this 8-year-old increase coordination, I think there's a valid point in that.
Yeah, 100%.
If you're a 23-year-old collegiate athlete or professional athlete, there's no reason for you to be using a ladder to getting faster.
No, your time is spent way better spent somewhere else, focusing on way more things than the ladder. And I'm sure this is something that just doesn't need to be said because it's been said so many times now. It's like a lot of it, people just want to put it on social media. It looks cool.
Yeah.
Like the look of speeding through a ladder really quickly, or whether it's phones, like that looks pretty good now. And people are like, oh man, his agility is quick. Look at his feet. The guy's got to be a hell of an athlete. But man, I've seen some people go through a ladder pretty quickly, and then he gets playing them on the field. Does it correlate? Does it translate? Not really. And that's the thing, is you have to remember that just because you say you can't do the ladder or you can't do the ladder doesn't mean that you are going to be the better athlete on the field. It doesn't always translate that way.
Yeah.
And that's why I always try and, again, take it back to being movement specific, sport specific. Will you be able to, the things that you are training, can you apply them once you're outside of this bubble of training? Is it going to help you on the court or, again, on the field?
Yeah, there's so many things like I'm looking at basketball players, and I'm going to go back to application. And man, I'm looking at how these shoes are made, and you want to know why. You want to know why there's a high prevalence of ankle injuries. Every single lateral move they do, their foot rolls because the sole, it's very difficult for an NBA basketball or even high school basketball player at this point to find a shoe that will give them the support. I think we've moved into fashion rather than performance. Or is there a way to combine the two? Is there a way to find the thing? And I think soccer cleats are part of that, where we're coming out into these narrow cleats, and it's
terrible.
It is driving me insane. And I'm telling soccer athletes, like, hey, once you take those cleats off, man, go get some toe spacers, wear some open toe sandals or something to allow those feet to breathe in, because I think, again, those things are applying to injury rates, where it's the shoe or the function. I don't know if you've seen, I think New Balance has a really good cleat because they offer a wider thing versus, let's say, Nike. Nike makes a very, very narrow cleat, and I'm not calling out either one, but I'm just seeing the correlation between the two. Is there a specific function that you have seen out of, let's say, a cleat, a basketball shoe, anything else apparatus-wise that I mean, look at your shoes. Look at what you're
man, like, yeah, and I think just as time has gone on, like, and I may be wrong in saying this, but it just seems the shoes themselves, like, they get away from being a fun. They want to have a certain design, so it's like they're not. You have to understand, these shoes are not designed for comfort.
Yeah.
And again, whether it's a basketball shoe or a
soccer cleat,
a soccer boot, right? So, like, we have kids that will come in and maybe they're used to wearing Adidas or maybe they're used to wearing Nikes, and then they switch it up and they try something else. And man, do they get the worst tendonitis or foot pain or stress reaction sometimes. And it's solely based on the mechanics of their ankle and foot, but also how it fits into whatever brand shoe they decide to choose. And like that's something you always have to look at.
And that's why I bring it up. It's because you're gonna see that you can say, yeah, you have tendonitis and plantar fasciitis. You've seen probably increases in shin splints.
Oh, all the time. Yes, all the time. And you also have to take those things and then look at what you're training on. If you're using these boots and you're training on fast, you feel great, awesome. I'm not somewhere where you are and there's a lot of turf. Man, you're on turf. That's a harder surface. Like you're not going to feel as good sometimes with those boots.
Yeah, and then the other piece to that, and then the other thing to that aspect is, I think, from a parent perspective, they're trying to give their kids the most advantage. Okay, here's the better of the cleat, and this provides the better performance based on whatever information they've gathered. Can we just bring back the copas and make the copas like a flat? Okay, this is what it is, all the way across the board.
That is the one boot that has outlasted anything else.
It's amazing.
And it was like yesterday we were playing the team against Dallas. Like you still got kids, 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds. There's kids out there that wear copas, and like you still see a classic boot. And if they pick that boot, like they haven't made a bad choice. Right?
Yeah, you question. They're like, you look at them, you know what? You're a player. You get it. And then you see. And then you see a kid in a pair of some, I'm not calling them CR7s, right? And you're just like, I don't know, man. You might be in this, the gold CR7s or silver.
Oh my God. And if you talk to any of our coaches, right? Obviously, they're all a little bit more seasoned veterans and they all play. But I mean, what are our coaches for copas, right? What did they play at copas? And again, it's just something that has lasted like throughout time. It's tried and true. It's never failed. And if you ask anybody who's ever worn them, they'll always tell you it's the best boot.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just something was designed right, and you can't go wrong with it.
I was so excited to get copas. Here's the thing. It was the most expensive cleat when I played. It was the $300 pair of cleat. I think they were like $130, $140 at the time. But that's $300 now.
Yeah.
And to get a pair, you were just like, oh, this is the best boot ever. And it lasted forever. You seasoned them. You got the kangaroo leather and you took showers in them and you broke them in. You did everything that you could. And you can't do that now with these plastic kind of cleats. And I can only imagine how these cleats are increasing injury rates or part of injury rates. But you brought up playing in Dallas and the transition from like city to city. How is that? How do you adapt to that as a trainer?
It's tough. Like it's first of all, in terms of just like being on the road, it's always hard, especially when you're used to training in wherever your home market is. For us in Utah, like our seasons are so different than when you play in Portland or Dallas or LA, right? We will train at elevation and sometimes it's colder and whatever. But then we go to a place like Dallas right now this time of year and the humidity's higher, the sun's out more.
Yeah.
It's tough to go to these different environments. So things you have to plan for, right, is you have to look at starting with obviously hydration. You know, can our kids, can they last 60, 90 minutes in this heat? Whereas if we were back in Utah and it's a little bit colder, we might be playing in our indoor field and like we feel great. It's controlled. It's a controlled environment and we're not having to deal with these weather conditions. So it's tough. Vice versa, when teams come to us and they play at elevation, man, you can see them tank real quick in the second half. Like playing in these different settings, again, whether it's anywhere on the West Coast or if we have to travel East Coast, it's always a challenge and you always have to adapt. And you think about playing surfaces and whether you're on grass and turf, depending on what you're used to, you take that all into consideration.
Yeah.
And if you know where you're going, you try and prepare as much as you can. You can't always control everything, but you know, okay, if we're going to spend 10 days in Dallas, we know it's going to be hot. We got to make an emphasis on hydration, our nutrition, our recovery times. It's super important in terms of planning on where you are. You can't just, I don't think you can just show up and play anywhere anymore, especially with the competitiveness of all the teams you play against, because everyone's going to be good. So the little things matter to get that competitive edge, right? So if you do the other things right, rather than just focusing on your technical abilities, but you do the things outside of like being on the field and planning and preparing for that, you can almost try and relate that and again, correlate that to a little bit more success or hoping that you're going to have a little bit more success if you play those types of things.
first off, I like where the MLS is going right now. As far as the increased viewership is there, I think that the popularity is starting to grow. I'm hoping that the MLS recognizes that we have some phenomenal talent right here locally that needs to be groomed and picked up. I watched a few games over the weekend, and I was really excited for Charlotte. That was a awesome game. And then the El Tráfico that was an awesome game. That was a great game. But there was a 17-year-old pro, and I'm sure that you've run into this. I don't know what the youngest guy is at Real, but there's some 17-year-old grown looking men that are playing at that level.
Yeah, 100%.
What is the youngest player right now that's come to, whether they started in the youth academy or they came, who was the youngest player on Real Salt Lake?
Man, what I'll start with is the MLS academies are great, and to compete in like within the MLS next and with the other MLS academies is phenomenal, and everybody has talent. All these teams are competitive. And look, this might sound biased. I think we have one of the best. I think we have one of the best academies in terms of producing pro players, whether we keep them on homegrown contracts at the club or they end up playing professionally somewhere else. I just think the caliber of player we bring in, and I think it's also a lot of credit to our coaching staff. One, for finding the right players, but also, again, finding these players and then molding them into a really efficient and high caliber team is unbelievable. You have to think about, like, our youngest age group right now that competes is our U15 team. And if you bring in a team and you have kids from Texas, California, Vegas, Michigan, wherever, it doesn't matter. If you bring all these kids in that have never played together and you put them on a team, okay, now you have this amount of time to get them ready to compete at a tournament from August to December. By the time December hits, you're going to be playing against MLS next teams in a tournament. Let's see how you do. And if you go out there and this team's moving like a well-oiled machine and you don't lose a game, all credit to the coach to find these right players and to be able to coach them to work like a team that's played together for 3 or 4 years. It's pretty impressive. So again, I think we have one of the greatest academies in terms of that and finding the right players that fit the right roles. And with that being said, we have players that will come in that age group, especially U15, and they quickly move up the ranks, whether it's moving up to the U17s, and then maybe you move up to the Monarchs, and then maybe you're training with the first team for a week or something like that. And to think about a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old competing against guys that are on professional contracts that have played in the MLS for 5, 6, 7 years. Could I have done that at that age? I have no idea. It's tough to think about. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
And I would say we have kids that are as young as 14 that have played and trained at those levels. We had a handful of our academy guys that went to preseason with the first team in Tucson in Arizona, and they got great exposure. They got to compete at high levels. And again, they're very good within their age groups, but it's okay. Let's throw them to something a little bit more competitive, see how they handle themselves. Let's step it up a level. Granted, obviously they're not going to shine as much as they used to within their age group, but they're going to grow from. And you see the growth once they drop back down into those age groups.
Kudos to the coaches for recognizing the talent, right? You're going to recognize this talent and say, you know what, man, these guys are crushing it here at this level. Let's push these 2-3 players on. Let's see how they do with, let's say, the second team or the first team. Apply that pressure and see how they mature. And I think that when you have those, if you're a coach and you're saying, hey, I have these 3 or 4 players that can go on to the next level, they're mature enough in their own right. Let's go ahead and put them against some of these older players, these more mature players, and see how they stack up. But your expectations are not for them to flourish at that moment. It's to flourish in 2 years when they're actually being called up. You groom them into that maturity process. You bring them back to their home team, and they have a whole new outlook on speed of play. They have a whole new outlook on what a teammate is. They have different leadership skills. So there's so many values that these kids are being brought into, and that stems from coaches recognizing that opportunity. What upsets me is coaches holding players because I have to succeed. So I have to hold this player, hold them back. It was I think it was Real. No, I'm sorry, it was Seattle. Seattle had last season 11 of their starting players, 5 of them or 6 of them were under the age of 19. The youngest was 15. So 15, 16, 17, and an 18-year-old. And I think it was insane to have that many youth players that came from the academy. It was directly from their academy, go to their first team, start an MLS game, and not only they win.
Yeah.
That's for me, that is what college is missing.
Yeah.
That we're burning our athletes out early.
Yes. Yeah. I will tell you from my own experience of playing in college, like it's a whole different ballgame. Whether you go from just high school soccer, club soccer, wherever you're at, to college soccer, it's a completely different ballgame. It was a huge transition for me. The seasons are short and sweet, right? Like it's a lot going on in a short amount of time. And the one thing that we tend to notice, especially with the Monarchs and the first team, when the draft happens and we bring in our college guys to join the league, the first thing we look at is, are they physically going to last throughout this entire MLS season,
right,
or a USL season, or now MLS Next Pro season? It's a lot longer than college. College, again, it's short, but they try and accomplish a lot in a short amount of time. So there's not a lot of turnaround. There's quick turnaround, and there's not a lot of time for recovery. You're lucky if you get a good performance coach and an athletic trainer that can understand that sometimes. And because, again, sometimes it's just about demand, and like you can't provide the quality of player and team in that amount of time and with that structure of a season. It just doesn't work very well.
When you were in college, what was your season like? Do you remember playing 3 games, 4 games in a week? Do you remember 2 games a week in the turnaround time? Because I think the NCAA is talking about moving to a 10-month.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit more reflective of what a professional season would be like, which is good. If that's the goal and that's what you want to do, then that's the right idea. I do remember you come in for a college season and you hit the ground running pretty much. There's no time to take 2 weeks in Arizona for a preseason and kind of get your body right. You have to come in ready to go because you maybe only have a quick week before you start playing 1 or 2 preseason games, and you're into the season. And then once you go through your season. Once the season's done, again, maybe it's just that Christmas break or whatever it is that you get a little bit of time off, and boom, you're right back into the spring again. And you're playing competitive matches. You're training early, whether it's weights early in the day, training in the afternoon. It doesn't matter. You're always doing something.
How was your introduction to strength and conditioning at the collegiate level coming out of high school? Because so quick background, I coached your brother, but I didn't coach you, right?
Correct.
There was no weight room, I think, presence at the time. Now you're being thrust into a weight room. I assume they're like, hey, here's a strength and conditioning program, but I don't know what the hell to do.
It was entirely new. So I know when I was in high school, it was the strangest thing. It was like the weight room was only for football. Like football was the only team that was ever in the weight room. The other teams, if it crossed the coach's mind, maybe the coach would take them in there and they would do something
right
for 30 minutes. For us at the time, especially with soccer, we didn't spend a day in the weight room. And we'd ask for it sometimes, why aren't we in that weight room? Why aren't we doing these things? And there's never an answer, but I just don't think it also wasn't the coach's responsibility to think about those things, though. It's on whoever the strength coach is to know how that's going to benefit each team. So we didn't have that at the time. So all our stuff was running on the field and maybe a little bit of a core circuit, some push-ups here and there.
Yeah, I'm much older than you, but that was my entire experience, right? That was you don't go to the weight room, you stay out of the weight room. Yeah. And I think there was a thought that we would injure ourselves, that we were going to get too big or too whatever. It was garbage, but
yeah, and it just makes sense. But again, at the time being in high school, what would I know? So I just obviously listened. I was lucky enough in my junior year to be working outside of what high school was with a personal trainer, with a guy who would train me. And so I did get exposure to the weight room outside of what my actual team was providing. And it helped me so much, especially once I was preparing to go to college. I understood movements a little bit more. I wasn't as unfamiliar as most people were in the weight room, because I can tell you when we walked in the door, like, there were a lot of people that had never spent time in the weight room, you know?
Yeah.
It's just something that wasn't emphasized with a lot of high school soccer kids coming out at that time, and how important it was. Now, granted, had I ever been in like a season-long like program where we're going to do this and this throughout the week, and then this is what we're going to, when you talk about microdosing and macrodosing and stuff like that throughout a season, have I ever been in that environment? No. So that was all. Some of those movements, obviously, very new to me. Why learning about plyometrics and stuff like that, that was all very new to me. But I knew, I was like, wow, okay, this feels a lot more legitimate than anything I had done before that. It was new, but I was so welcoming of it and excited to finally incorporate that into what I was doing. And I can tell you, after training in that, I don't even want to say style, just being finally exposed to it, like it changes everything.
Right, and it pushes you in another direction.
Yeah, and you need that at the youth level. All the stuff that you guys do, especially working with youth athletes, creating a good foundation and being comfortable in the weight room with certain movements, whether it is doing plyometrics or underneath the bar doing squats or something like that, doing a split squat. Like, you shouldn't have to wait till your senior year of high school or your freshman year of college to be exposed to doing it, because at that time it's almost too late.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. So some of the one of the biggest, I guess, either compliments or the biggest things that we've had is where college athletes return to home, they train over the summer, and they're saying, I was the most well-prepared athlete. I knew how to squat, I knew how to hinge, I knew how to lunge, I knew how to push, pull, I knew how to do the basic stuff. And my strength coach didn't have to babysit me on, you said, movements. I could progress myself in my weights, I could progress myself in my movements. And which is it's a great compliment to have, but that's what the message that we continue to try to push to parents early on is, listen, if you wait for your senior year in high school to start strength training, or your freshman, let's say the graduation this summer, and the expectation is to get stronger, faster, and prepare for college, you are so far behind the 8 ball. There's nothing that a strength coach can do but give you some basic foundation movements to prepare you for college. I've also had college coaches or college strength coaches tell me, don't teach the hang clean or don't teach a power clean, because when they get here, we're going to show them the way we want them to do it. If anything, if you teach them like the basic stuff. Don't give them something so technical that because we're going to change it. And it's almost, I've equated that to club soccer in high school to college, because when you get to college out of club, it is completely different. They're going to change the way that you play.
Yeah.
They're going to change everything that you thought that you knew about the sport, and they're going to put more on you and say, this is how we're going to play, right? You can't play, you can only play lateral. We got to play direct, or, hey, I only want you taking 2 touches. If you have some open space, great. There's so many variations, but why is not every high school in America or middle school have a personal trainer that understands the foundation movements, going through these and prepping? I have my reasonings, I have my answers, and I'll keep them to myself right now. But the biggest thing is parents really need to understand, like yourself, like your mom, or even you probably figured out early, like 11th grade, you're like, I need a trainer. I need to get ready for this. I want to do more, Mom, help me out. It's aggravating.
And like, to be honest, like my mom tried to get me doing this stuff early, like when I won't even say as early as middle school sometimes.
Yeah.
I was not a fan. And I understand, like, being that middle school going into the freshman of high school, like, why do you want to spend your weekends going to do sprints and lifting these weights? You're like, well, this isn't me. Like, why am I doing this? I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. I'm not an NFL pro athlete. Like, why are you making me do this, Mom? I want to go home. Let me play Xbox.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
And you don't realize how much it really helps you to start that early, even if you hate it. just to be exposed to it. Like, it makes such a difference.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that I see working from a college level on sometimes is once they get to college, if they haven't done things the right way at those earlier ages, it's almost too late because they're set in their ways.
Right.
You can do some stuff and you can help them understand a little bit more. But structurally, if they feel like they are the most athletic and they move this way better, they're doing a shuffle, their knees are moving like this and their ankles rolling this way. How much, if I only have 2-3 years with you as a college athlete, how much can I really change if you've been doing this for your whole life?
Exactly. Your motor patterns are already like you've structured yourself that way. And trying to correct it is you're talking now reducing, again, years on, if sometimes years, depending on how bad it is. But if it's something simple, right? If let's say we take a push-up, we've seen, I'm sure, some hideous push-ups. I'm sure you've seen just some god-awful push-ups. And you hear a skill coach or a sport coach say, keep your head up, and they're not, keep your elbows tucked, or there's so many variations, right? The low back is sagging. They don't care. They just want them to feel like they're going through these motions. And we see here, right? We have to break it down. Literally, we have to start all the way back into a plank.
Yeah.
And then we progress, because the push-up is just a moving plank. It's essentially, it's what it is. They're not teaching kids early on to squeeze their quads, engage glutes, engage core, inhale, exhale, the breath work that's involved. Some of it's just simple, right? It's, hey, you need to look like the letter A, not like the letter T, where, they're like this and they're doing a push-up. You're like, you want to save your shoulders. Let's,
100%.
But you see that, but you also see that in the adult side as well. Just in the general fitness side of things, you probably see it as well. You are a trainer, things outside of soccer that are probably just as egregious, and you're just like, I can't help you, but try this. Yeah, man, that's whatever.
I think, and one thing to say to that is, I think sometimes, like, we take that knowledge for granted, especially when I was doing the more personal training side of things. I would look at somebody would be doing a movement, and I would look at them and I'm like, why are they doing that? Don't they know they're supposed to keep their heels?
It's a really good point. That's a really good point, man. Valid point.
And you just sit there and you're like, and especially if you're in a class in a group setting, which I've done many a times, like, you can't get to everyone. And sometimes you're just happy that they're doing it. So like, you give up on some people and try to correct them with some stuff, because if they're only supposed to do this movement for 20 to 30 seconds, but you need maybe sometimes 2 minutes to explain how to do a clean and press properly or a high pull.
Right.
Like, it's sometimes not worth the battle in the moment, but after, you have to, like, sometimes what I've done is take people aside after the fact and say, hey, try it like this, or do this next time. You should feel it here. And again, like, they think the entire time they're doing it, and as long as they're just doing the movement, they think, I've done it.
Yeah.
And you take the knowledge for granted, because in our minds, we recognize these things so quickly, and we see, oh, that's wrong. They're going to hurt themselves here. They should be doing this. And like, again, it's, oh, we need to realize the general population doesn't understand all the time, maybe the why they're doing it, what they should be feeling, and how it could potentially hurt them as well.
Yeah, I think that it kind of goes back to my speed and agility coaches and calling out the ladder, is that, yes, I'm glad that they're doing something. I'm always glad that somebody's doing something. I see people that run down the street, they have both knee sleeves on, they have the worst running form, and you're wondering why they have both knee sleeves on. And it's the valgus is extreme, but I'm happy that they're like just moving, right? I'm happy that they're getting something in. But you almost want to stop them and be like, hey, let me show you a better way of doing this. Now, obviously, we can't do that, and we probably shouldn't, but
approach is everything, right?
Approach is everything. And I think that goes back into the speed and agility thing, where you're like, listen, okay, what approach are you taking? Maybe there's just the coach doesn't know, right? That's the skill coach that just doesn't realize that, hey, the way that you did it 20 years ago or 15 years ago isn't the same way that it's being taught now, or the application is different. Here's when you should apply your clean. This is the best part of the season, or this is the best part of the year to apply it. I'm glad that they're moving, but I won't call out the high school locally, but there was I get a text message from the ATC who is a friend of ours, and you're not going to believe what happened. What happened? He's like, I just saw a freshman clean. He had to clean 225, blew out his L4, L5. And we see this I see this on Instagram where these kids are cleaning weight, obviously that they shouldn't be. Everything about that movement they just did was wrong. And they're fighting to get the bar up. The crowd around him is cheering them on and pushing, let's go. And again, to a degree, I'm glad this kid is trying to push through and work hard, and kudos, but what's the value behind it? Right. If you're so sore, if you're training so hard and you're so sore that when you wake up the next day or 2 days later, you can't move, then what are the expectations on the field or the court or back into the weight room again? It's really difficult to have that conversation with a competitive athlete who wants to stay in the weight room, who wants to stay on the field or the court and get shots up and work on skill set. It's hard to scale that mentality back, but we have these so extremes. We have coaches who just want to get kids moving, and you're going to do these exercises that I did, and I don't care really what this new era says of trainers. And then you have this extreme opposite of nobody doing anything. Like, I'll play Xbox. And they refuse to get into the weight room. So trying to find that balance is really hard. But what message do you see across the board about getting into the weight room? Is there a messaging that's being missed that we need to do more of?
I don't know if it's necessarily being missed. I think all the right things are usually always said, but and to me, like, this is what I do with my rehab patients. Like, I think it just takes a little extra explaining. Like, if you go up and tell someone, hey, we're going to do this and this for our workout today, you do that over time with these people. Like, they know what to expect when they walk in the door. Okay, this guy's going to tell me I have to do this and this, and I'm just going to do it. It's robotic, repetitive. And again, it goes back. And it goes back to thinking about, do the athletes understand why we're doing this? Have they been told, do they understand how it's going to correlate? And most of the time, probably not. So if they're told we're going to do split squats and we're going to do these throws and then we're going to go do this, they might not know why. And then at some point, they're just going to say, why are we doing this? I don't like this. This is my least favorite movement. We're always doing this one. Like, why are we always doing Nordic hamstrings? This is so lame. And so if you take that little extra moment in some of your sessions to explain to the kids, we're doing this because of this, and this is how it's going to prevent this from happening, or this is how we're going to increase that. And then you'll see on the field when you do this movement, you're going to notice a difference. Sometimes they can start to put the pieces together because, again, an athlete's not going to think that way. They're focused on their sport. They're focused on just getting better, but they didn't go to school for these things. They didn't get the certifications. And it's the same thing I do when I work with my rehab patients. If I'm doing someone's rehab, I say, look, we're going to do this and this plane because this is the stability or this is the motion we want to work on today. And this is how it's going to hopefully help that pain or you increase this. And then they're like, okay, rather than just saying, you're going to do this, 3 sets of 15, I'll come back and check on you in a second. Like, at that point, it's, again, the person will just sit there and be like, yeah, I'm just being told what to do. And is this even working?
Yeah.
I know as an athlete, and again, being in those shoes and being there before, I've been told those things before. And sometimes I get frustrated. Why am I working on glute strength and my pain is on my patella tendon for my patella tendonitis? Like, why am I doing this? Doesn't make sense. I'm feeling it up here, but my pain's down here. Like, no one ever told me why. Obviously, going to school later on and you realize why you're doing these things. But again, if somebody told me, like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. And so then maybe there would be more adherence to programming and people wanting to be in the weight room and people wanting to show up on time for treatment and rehabs and stuff like that. If they just understood the purpose behind everything a little bit more.
I want to switch gears a little bit, man, and like I said, I'm not a great host, right? I've probably shift gears like probably 9 times, but I want to talk about what drove you to becoming an ATC. What started the thought of, I think this is the field I want to go?
Yeah. I think the most basic story you'll hear from athletic trainers is probably the most common is, oh, I got hurt and I had an athletic trainer. I saw how much they helped, or I did physical therapy. I saw how, and I want to help other people. So it's not unvalid. It's very valid. valid to want to give back, and if you're treated the right way and you want to get the same in return, it's a very valid route to go down. But for me, coming out of high school, I was in my mind, a competitive soccer player, right? And I wanted to hit my max. I wanted to do everything I could to extend the longevity of my soccer career. And playing locally in Jacksonville, I never played at the big clubs, right? I played at Westside. We were one of the smaller clubs in Jacksonville, probably the cheapest one to play at, the worst fields probably in all of Jacksonville. And playing at Bishop Snyder, where like the school's 10 years old, like we've had maybe in the history of the school 2 people go play college, like ever, any sport, whatever it is. And I'm like, I want to go do something. And I was able to achieve that. So I went and played college, but it was that moment of being the big fish in the small pond to being the small fish in the big pond at that moment. And I quickly realized my freshman year coming in, holy crap, these other guys are good. And I said, now I see what it takes to get to the next level. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get there. It was just a big wake-up call for me, and that's all. And that's a good thing. It was very humbling. And at that point, I was like, I want to be an athlete, but I just don't see this career working out the entire way. So how can I still be a part of a sports team and be as close as I can be to an athlete and contribute, but not be on the field? As an athletic trainer, you're right on the sideline, right?
Yeah.
You're there for every moment. And as an athlete, going through those experiences of having your highs and lows, of having your best days on the field and then being hurt, like things with your teammates, and you could be better, but something's holding you back. You need to rely on someone else because you can't get yourself to that point of top performance. So who's going to help you? And that's the resource I wanted to be. Like, again, not to say I can understand and relate to every athlete's experience, but being there at some of these levels sometimes and being exposed to a lot of different sports growing up and playing, like you kind of understand what it takes at some points. And so you know how to relate to the athlete a little bit more and help them get to that next level. And whether it's getting back on the field, like you can help them achieve that. And I think the other thing too is if you haven't been in the shoes, it's tough to relate sometimes. So I always look at this business also as being a lot of personality and just being a personable person.
Right.
Like you can't always just look at everything so textbook and say, okay, this person, this is my 3-month ACL guy. And you say, hey, this is our ACL guy. Hey, this is our shoulder guy. They're not your shoulder. This is your pitcher. This is your offensive lineman. This is Jack. This is whoever they are. Being able to be personable with them, sometimes again, getting that more emotional connection with them as well. And the mental aspect of going through these things can pay dividends, because if you have a long-term rehab as an athlete, you're not part of things, your mental can tank so quickly. And so if you're tanking mentally, like your rehab's going to go down, your attitude's going to go down. And again, I think knowing what an athlete goes through, again, at the highs and lows, and being able to just be there sometimes for them, again, whether it's physically giving them what they need to do or just being that person as an outlet, you can help in so many different ways. And that's just all I wanted to be. Once I was not an athlete, I didn't want to sit in a cubicle. I didn't want to be a CPA. I don't know. It just wasn't my thing.
Right.
I want to be with the teams. That's me. So like, how can I be as close to an athlete as I can without actually being an athlete? That's how I got to this point.
Which is crazy, because and again, everything that I'm hearing is just, there's wisdom in that, because it's the sense of, okay, I'm not going to go play the next level. This is it. College is it. But I still want to be involved. How can I still be involved? Takes a lot of, I think, wisdom in the sense of what your approach into how you contribute to the industry is, I think, really important. Was watching Real Salt Lake, and I see you run on the field. I'm like, yes, I know. There he is. There's Luke. I see him. I don't even know if I sent you did I send you a DM with a picture of you? No, maybe the game I was watching and I missed, I don't know. But I was like, you know what? Dude is there. Like, you're in the mix of it. You're just in it's just a different perspective of the sport. And but it's a really important perspective. It's like, I can't stress enough of how many like good trainers we need. Like beyond personal trainers, we need really good athletic trainers. We need really good physical therapists. We really need just a good, and from your aspect is it, you are looking beyond the range of motion. You're looking at total function, which is phenomenal. It's not just a very rigid, this is right, we're only going to do knee, so this is it. This is the only thing we're going to do. You're probably looking at total limb, which is great. We need more of that, man. And I can't stress enough that I'm hoping that there's a shift, there's a paradigm shift, that we're getting more of these to come out. And I applaud you, because it's a thing that many people think that I can't be a pro player, so I'm just going to quit altogether. And they just walk away from the game, either hating the game or hating a system, or where they could still be involved. And that's the most important part, is still being involved. And I love the fact that you're still involved.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Yeah, your view, by the way, is just, it makes me sick.
Yeah, lucky in that sense too. It's so funny. Last night I met up with a couple other academy athletic trainers and just other club athletic trainers, and you hear things at other clubs of maybe people having to train off site at high schools, or they get kicked out of this weight room because of this and that. And to be in my position here at Real Salt Lake, we have amazing facilities, and we are just so blessed. I'm very grateful for the places I work in, because I've seen athletic training work in a 5x5 closet before, and then I've seen it work in a nice freaking space where you have every modality, every resource.
The resources are there, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it at all levels, and you can do it anywhere. But to be able to be in a position where you do have access to so many more things it's so much of a blessing, and I'm so grateful. And the staff I work with is super supportive, again, from the top down, whether it's our first team staff and our academy staff. It's not like you are just the first team staff and you're just the academy staff. It's very much so a collective effort. The amount of times that all of us in passing, whether we're talking or catching up, talking about maybe this one specific player or something that's going on with them. I mean, It's conversations that are happening with guys that work at the top level and guys that are working with the academy. It's very much so a team effort. And I'm lucky to be in such a great work environment, because I've been in environments where it's not like that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
And I think a huge problem is being in places where not knowing something and is looked down upon, and you can be belittled or looked at as, well, why don't you know that? Or you should know that, or the answer is this. That should not be the approach. It's, again, whether it's performance or athletic training or dealing with an injury, it shouldn't be looked at that way. Let these be learning and growing opportunities for everybody, because what somebody's seen or done in their career is not what everybody else has done. Everybody has different paths and has been exposed to different things. And to be in a work setting where that happens sucks, and it makes you not like your job. But now I've been in a setting where, again, it's a very collaborative effort. And I think something super important is to be able to admit, even at this level, I don't know, or I haven't dealt with that before. Let me look it up. Let me go ask somebody else. Let me reach out to a colleague. Let me try another resource.
Yeah.
And even at this level, there are many times where it's not just myself and other people I work with, where they come to me or I come to them and say, hey, have you dealt with this before? Because I don't know anything about this, or I've never heard of this. It's okay to say you don't know and still look and work as
a professional. That's right. Yeah, right. That's awesome, man. Yeah, that statement alone is something that is needed to be said, again, from all facets of professions, to say, I don't know. There's times where I get something in here where I'm like, okay, I'm not comfortable with this. I need to refer out. This is not cool. Why don't you go see the PT guy down the road? I'll refer him to so-and-so. But I have to make sure that, one, I want to make sure that we're giving the right amount of attention given to the athlete or to whomever we're working with. Not only are we trying to give them the right amount of attention, that we're just providing the right trust. We're building that trust right off the bat. And if another professional comes up to me and says, dude, I don't know this, and maybe I do, or vice versa, I've come up to, and this is what I think why I have a niche for what you're saying, is because I've come up to professionals that have doctorate's degree. I'll ask them a question and I get the worst response.
Yeah.
I'll walk up to the same with the same question to someone who's been in the industry for, let's say, 15, 20 years with just a bachelor's degree, and I get in-depth response. And to be humbled by taking the time out to give me an example, or saying, hey, yeah, I'll help you with this, because there's no ego involved with giving you the answer, right? It's, hey, yeah, here's how I've approached with it versus the PhDs who are just refer them to me, giving them to me if it's local or if it's not local. So I think that there's a thing there where you've removed the ego aspect out of it a little bit.
Right.
And it's been a common theme amongst some of the people that I talk to on the podcast where either their egos are, like, they're really humbled, or they've learned how to remove their ego out of that equation. That comes through growth, and that comes through spending time around professionals and being creative in those 5x5 rooms. You're just trying to figure out how to help them in that space with no resources to the multi-million-dollar facility that has every resource.
And I think for me especially, it's funny because, and I learned this in grad school the most, like this is when it really, like with me, it's like the more I learn, the less I realize. Like, so like, you think when you hit a point where you're like, oh yeah, things are going great, I recognize this, I'm doing this, I'm
Right.
doing this, and then you get hit with something, you're like, oh wow, there's a whole like,
There's something new.
yeah, something new that I was like, I wouldn't have even thought of that. And grad school exposed me to that so much. And the other flip side of that being like, and sometimes in grad school, we didn't have all the resources. I worked at an FCS football school. We're not big time Division I, Michigan State, Alabama. It is like we were working in my little basement for rehab and stuff sometimes. And I think that's when you become more creative and you have to work a little bit more. And I think one of the most innovative athletic trainers in our profession, Jeff Allen, who does work with Alabama, one thing he said is like, you almost end up having so much more respect for the people that work at high schools in those smaller settings because he's someone who has all the resources they can have. And some of these other settings, especially like where I work now, like again, I'm lucky to have an underwater treadmill, an Ultra G where we can modify people's body weights when they're running on a treadmill, when we can do DEXA scans a couple times a year with these athletes. Like we have access to these things, but when you work in settings that don't, those people are working harder sometimes. And you have to have a little bit more respect because it takes a little bit more creativity to do the same craft you're doing. I'm lucky, like we get these opportunities to make our jobs easier with some of these resources. So sometimes it takes away some of the thinking that you really have to do with some of this stuff because you're just like, oh, I have this, I can treat it with this Mark Pro, or I can throw some dry needles in this person. Whereas, again, if you're working in that 5x5 closet at a high school or like maybe an NAIA school, some community college, it's a grind. And you're doing essentially the same job, but they have to go about doing it a way different way.
Yeah, their approach is going to be different, man. And what you're saying is that you have to have empathy as a human, right? We've now removed your profession altogether and said, I empathize with you. I understand that I'm sitting in this multi-million-dollar facility and you're sitting in a basement. And how about this? Here's maybe trade some secrets. Maybe if you've been through that already, as you've already had that experience, share that information. I'm going to go back to the 1995 Perform Better magazine. I'm sitting here looking at it and I'm like, there's nothing new. So if there's something that maybe we can improve on, let's say again, the back squat is now the Bulgarian split squat, and that is the squat that you should be doing, or that's going to be now the foundation because it provides stability, balance, it gets to your glutes, gets to your hamstrings better. Whatever, it's a running technique. There's so many other things that you must have empathy for. And I empathize with high school coaches. And that's why we try to get into these high schools and say, your time is better served writing up your X's and O's or coming up with better rosters. Let us take the time and do this for you, right?
Yeah.
So listen, man, I appreciate you coming on. And shout out, I got a Real Salt Lake. It's going to be hung up here shortly. And the next time do you guys travel to Florida at all? Do you guys play Miami?
Oh, I wish, man. I really wish. No East Coast. I know my family's hoping to do too, so there's no East Coast trips right now.
Damn, you know what? Maybe the closest one I'll try to fly out and watch a game. That would be dope. But anyways, listen, man, I appreciate what you do when you're in the sport. Your contributions to the sport are exceptional. I'm lucky to call you a friend. I'm learning from you. I've even just seen different things that maybe not even soccer related. It's cool.
Appreciate it, man. Like I'm happy we got to do this, and I feel every time we get to talk, it's never enough time.
Never enough time. I can go on for hours. Yeah.
Maybe I'll be able to get my hands on a Monarchs jersey this time. So I'll get
There you
to know
go.
all the different levels here.
There you go.
But yeah, we'll keep chatting and staying in touch and stuff. And I'm happy we got to do this, and hopefully we'll do it again in the future at some point.
Absolutely, man. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so my Instagram is gonna be, it's like ITS and then dot and then lukewarm is the Instagram handle.
There you go.
So that's definitely more of the personal account. I do post some athletic training stuff on there sometimes, but a little bit more on Twitter. I have a little bit more professionalism on there in terms of specific to Real and what I do. And that's just gonna be like at L and then underscore UKE, like LUKE, and then another underscore after that for Twitter.
Awesome.
And I post on there sometimes, about what I'm doing at Real and whatnot, but you get a taste of everything if you go on both my socials, so check them out. Maybe I'll post some stuff from the GA Cup right now. There's good competition here right now. And not only do we have all the MLS clubs, but we have Tigres, we have Club America here, we have Manchester United, Celtics here, like we have
What a lineup.
good teams out here to compete with this next 10 days.
Send me some video.
Oh man, I'll try and get some Instagram live going for you guys.
Oh.
So there's some good competition out here right now in Dallas.
That is awesome, man. Listen, again, dude, I appreciate it. I know you're busy. I know that you have to go. I hope this podcast recording comes out without any hiccups. But yeah, man, we can do this for days. So I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. All right. Stay in touch. And again, hopefully we can do this at another point too.
All right, man. Later.
All right. Talk to you later.